Welcome to the deep dive. We take a stack of information, unpack it, and pull out the key insights, just for you.
And today we're really getting into something central to, well, pretty much everything. Young people, politics, and social media.
Exactly. It's this complex relationship. We've got sources from electoral commissions in Malawi, big picture reviews on social media's impact, even analysis from South Africa.
A really diverse set.
Right. And our mission today is to understand the hurdles young voters face, how technology fits in, and, what it all means for democracy around the world.
It is a critical nexus, absolutely. And what's fascinating is how these different sources, they seem worlds apart sometimes, but they really shine a light on a universal struggle and a landscape that's changing incredibly fast.
So we'll be connecting those dots between, say, traditional voter education, the tough economic realities kids face, and this huge influence of digital platforms.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this first idea. History often paints young people as the ones driving change, right?
Oh, definitely. Their energy, their creativity.
Yeah.
It's undeniable, whether it's at the ballot box or, through more radical actions.
We can think of examples like Tiananmen Square or the Cordoba student movement way back in 1918, even Martin Luther King Jr. starting out so young. And in Africa, the Arab Spring in 2011, that was huge. Tunisia, Egypt, Libya.
Syria, Yemen. They call it the City Square movement.
And more recently, South Africa's #RoseMustFall, #FeesMustFall, Nigeria's End SARS protests in 2020, Kenya's finance bill protests just this year, led by Gen Z.
And you can't forget the role of youth against apartheid in South Africa.
Right.
The Soweto uprising in '76, that was a massive turning point.
Absolutely pivotal. So that capacity for change is clear historically, but, and this is the big question, what's the reality now for a lot of young people?
That's where our sources show this really striking contrast, especially when you look at places like Malawi and South Africa. Economic anxiety is it's enormous.
Okay, let's start with Malawi. They have this Malawi 2063 vision, right? Talking about youth as the greatest resource, aiming for youth-centric, inclusive wealth creation. Sounds great on paper.
It does. But the reality on the ground, it's pretty stark. Malawi ranks 168th out of 183 countries on the Global Youth Development Index. That tells you something.
Wow, 168th. So what does that look like economically?
Well, more than 1 in 5 young Malawians face multiple deprivations: education, jobs, health. Over half, 53%, of 18 to 35-year-olds are unemployed and actively looking for work.
More than half.
Yeah. And a huge chunk are NEET, not in employment, education, or training. That's 38% of young women, 23% of young men.
And why can't they find work? What are the barriers?
The top reasons they report are, well, lack of adequate training, that's about a third. Then there's a mismatch between their education and what jobs actually need, and then lack of experience.
So it's a real skills gap and an opportunity gap. What do they want the government to do about it?
It's interesting. When asked about youth-focused programs, they want job creation and education prioritized. But when asked about the most important problems for the government to fix overall, food shortage comes first, at 55%. Then the rising cost of living, 31%. Unemployment, it's actually 9th on that bigger list.
9th.
Yeah.
It really puts things in perspective. It's about basic survival needs first.
Exactly. And faced with all this, it's maybe not surprising that 51% of young Malawians have thought about leaving the country.
Half of them.
Yeah, and over a quarter have given it a lot of thought. Why? Mostly to find jobs or just escape the economic hardship. And this feeling is strongest among urban, educated young men.
That paints a really powerful, kind of grim picture, all this economic struggle.
Yeah.
It must impact how they feel about politics back home. And this isn't unique to Malawi, is it?
No, not at all. You see very similar things in South Africa. They talk about the triple challenge, poverty, inequality, unemployment. And the numbers there are just as concerning. 61% of South Africans are under 35. The official unemployment rate for under 35s looking for work is 55%.
55? That's staggering.
It's 24 points higher than the national average. And 44% of 16 to 34-year-olds are NEET. That figure has actually gone up since 2012.
So it's getting worse, not better. How does this affect their trust in the government, in the system?
Well, public opinion on the government's handling of job creation is, and this is a quote, overwhelmingly negative. And it's gotten much worse since 2021.
Okay.
So this frustration, combined with the economic reality, it definitely erodes trust. Now, the demand for democracy itself is still strong. Over 60% prefer it. But satisfaction with how it's actually functioning, that's dropped for all age groups between 2011 and 2022.
So they still believe in the idea, but not necessarily the execution?
Exactly. And the feeling that voting actually makes a difference. That elected officials reflect their views. That's also declined quite a bit since 2008. You've got a generation under huge pressure, seeing promises broken. It naturally makes them question the whole process.
Right. So given these pretty deep economic problems and this kind of declining trust, what does that mean for getting young people involved in elections? Traditionally, it's all about civic and voter education, right? Let's look at Malawi again.
Yeah, and what's quite insightful here is the Malawi Electoral Commission's approach to the MEC. They have a really comprehensive strategy for civic and voter education, or C&V.
What's their main goal with that?
It's pretty broad, actually. They want to increase people's knowledge about how elections work, encourage participation, especially from groups like women, youth, people with disabilities, promote peaceful behavior, build confidence in the whole process.
Sounds like they're trying to cover all the bases. How do they actually do it? It sounds like a huge task.
It is. They work with over 40 different civil society organizations, CSOs, and they use a ton of different methods.
Like what?
Okay, so they have theater groups, 126 trained groups doing performances and roadshows across all 28 districts. They use radio and TV, both major stations and community ones. They do outreach through churches, mosques, even schools, getting information to parents via their kids.
Wow.
Yeah, meetings with traditional leaders. They hand out over 2 million pieces of material, posters, brochures, comics in local languages. They even use loudhailers on government vehicles to get people to register.
That is incredibly thorough. They're really trying to reach everyone. But despite all that effort, you said there's still some interesting feelings among the youth.
There are. So while 62% of young Malawians think community leaders are doing a decent job promoting young leaders, their support for elections being the best way to choose leaders, it's at 65%. Which sounds okay, but it's actually weaker than older groups who are up in the 75–83% range.
Sure. Interesting difference.
And while a small majority, 52%, would support lowering the voting age to 16, a really high number, 81%, still say they definitely plan to vote in the next election in September 2025.
81%. So they're not checking out entirely.
Not at all. But again, that 81% is still lower than their elders, who are between 85 and 93%. So it's engagement, yes, but maybe with a bit more reservation.
Or skepticism.
Yeah, skepticism sounds right. It's not apathy. It sounds more like a calculated, maybe disillusioned approach.
I think that's a good way to put it. You have figures like the EU ambassador to Malawi, Rune Skinneback, and an MEC commissioner, Olivia Louie, openly telling university students, hey, be proactive, use social media for policy talk, hold leaders accountable between elections, don't just wait for...
Next election cycle, yeah.
Yeah.
That phrase teaser when it's on at 2025.
We shall see in 2025. And James Lihoma, who heads the Political Science Association at the Catholic University of Malawi, he basically says youth are playing it smart. They realize politicians often use them and then just discard them after the election. So it's a disillusionment, not maybe with democracy itself, but with the politicians and the political game as it's played.
Exactly. The practicalities of it, the perceived sincerity or lack thereof.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting and maybe more complicated. We live in this super connected digital world now, social media. It's added this whole other layer, hasn't it? It's not just about posters and radio ads anymore.
Not even close. And what's really insightful here is how platforms we might think of as just entertainment, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, they've become incredibly important political spaces.
How so?
They're fundamentally shaping how young people talk about politics, how they find others who think like them, how they participate, often completely bypassing traditional news media.
So it's empowering them in new ways.
Definitely. It boosts political awareness, makes discussion easier, helps build communities online, and just creates totally new avenues for participation. Think back to the Arab Spring again. Facebook was used to schedule protests, Twitter to coordinate, YouTube to show the world what was happening.
Right. It makes things feel much more direct, more personal almost. That connection between, say, a candidate and a voter.
It does create that direct connection, which can increase engagement.
Yeah.
Now, the research is a bit mixed on whether it always leads to higher voter turnout, but even really small interactions, like just liking something on Facebook, have been shown to be surprisingly predictive of voting behavior.
Just to like. Wow.
Yeah, and in South Africa, think about hashtag Rose Must Fall and hashtag Fees Must Fall. Digital activism on social media gave young people a powerful platform to get their views out, to mobilize. And they had real success, didn't they? Getting statues removed, forcing action on tuition fees. It shows that collective digital action can have real-world impact.
It absolutely can. It's a powerful tool for connection, for mobilization. But we all know there's a flip side to this digital coin, right? Things can get pretty messy online.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
If we zoom out, the research points to this significant dual nature. Yes, social media can help build cohesion, even peace, but it can just as easily polarize people, get in the way of peace efforts, promote extremism, spread
The
misinformation.
classic double-edged sword.
Exactly. Exposure to social media might increase your political knowledge in some ways, but it can also just bombard you with partisan bias that twists how you see the issues.
Hmm.
These platforms, they can be used to stir up violence just as effectively as they can be used to calm things down. You saw that contrast in the Arab Spring, nonviolent protests working in Egypt and Tunisia, but much worse outcomes in Yemen, Syria, Libya.
So it's not inherently good or bad. It's how it's used. And those echo chambers we hear about, are they a big part of the problem?
They're definitely a concern. This idea that you only see things that confirm what you already believe, reinforcing strong feelings like anti-immigrant sentiment, for example,
Yeah.
and that this then translates into offline political action,
Yeah.
it's a worry. Although, interestingly, some research suggests people do still encounter diverse views online, even if they lean strongly one way, which might mean there's potential for, online interventions to actually counter misinformation. That's something we need to explore more.
Okay, so it's complicated, but are there clear positives beyond the mobilization aspect, especially in difficult situations like post-conflict?
Yes, despite the risks, social media does offer some real advantages there. It can help bridge divides between groups that were previously enemies. It can be a space for mental health support, people sharing coping strategies for PTSD, for instance.
Hmm.
You can crowdsource information in dangerous areas, like we saw in Kenya and Nigeria during crises. And it boosts transparency, people sharing videos of, say, police brutality or election fraud. It creates this two-way street where people aren't just consuming information, they're shaping their own views and potentially contributing to peace.
This really underlines the complexity, doesn't it? It's not just about if young people are online, but how they're using these platforms, what information they're encountering, what they're creating. It's a whole dynamic ecosystem.
It really is. And this complexity raises a really important question. What don't we know yet? What are the big gaps in our understanding of this digital political world?
Good question. Our sources must point some out.
They do. The systematic literature review we looked at highlights several key areas. First, we really need more long-term studies.
Long term?
Yeah, longitudinal studies that track the effects of social media on political engagement and voting over time, not just a snapshot. And we need to consider different voting systems, different demographic groups. We kind of get the short-term picture, but the lasting impact, that's still a bit fuzzy.
Okay, so understanding the endurance of these effects. What else?
Ethics. We need more research on the ethical side of using all this social media data to predict how people might vote. There are huge privacy concerns, potential biases, and how data is collected and crunched.
Right, the potential for manipulation based on that data.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of bias and misinformation.
Yeah.
We need to dig deeper into how partisan biases actually develop on different platforms in different countries, what really causes echo chambers, and crucially, what strategies actually work to combat fake news and disinformation online.
Finding effective countermeasures.
Yes, researchers are basically calling for bigger, more comprehensive models that pull together findings from lots of different studies. But that requires better access to data and just a much more nuanced understanding of how political information flows and shapes views online.
So we know a lot about what social media is doing, maybe, but the why behind it and how it plays out long term.
Sure.
Still lots to unravel there. It's like we're still mapping this digital political territory.
Precisely. Still very much uncharted in many ways.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from, the historical power of youth movements to the really tough economic pressures driving choices in places like Malawi and South Africa right now, and then this incredibly powerful but also risky influence of social media. I think one thing that's crystal clear is that young people aren't apathetic. That's the wrong word.
Absolutely not. They're navigating incredibly complex situations, economic stress, a digital world that's constantly shifting. They're looking for real ways to make their voices count, demanding accountability, wanting to see a real return on their engagement.
And what really stands out is this ongoing tension, isn't it, between the old school civic engagement efforts, the posters, the meetings, and this super dynamic, sometimes chaotic world of digital activism.
That's a key takeaway. Understanding how those two interact is vital. How do we encourage genuine participation and critical thinking online while also protecting people from misinformation and manipulation? Getting that balance right is crucial for healthy democracies everywhere. It's about empowering youth as informed change agents, not just passive consumers or targets.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? Maybe next time you see a headline about youth voter turnout dipping or some political meme going viral, think about all these layers.
Yeah, the economic pressures, the digital opportunities, the potential pitfalls.
Think about how the traditional institutions, the MECs of the world, are trying or maybe struggling to keep up with this digital pace. And just how much more we still need to figure out about the long-term effects of living our political lives online. This deep dive, I think it shows not just huge challenges, but also immense potential, right? For informed, engaged young citizens to really shape their future if the conditions are right.
If those conditions can be nurtured, yes.
So what stands out to you from today's discussion? We hope this gave you a shortcut to feeling well-informed, maybe sparked a few aha moments.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive.